The Russian Federation, the USSR, or that incarnation known as the USSR, certainly had better times. But at the moment, well, just the simple facts are these. It is a degraded, backward dictatorship, incapable of creating even its own national car or airplane, despite having a five-fold advantage in manpower and hardware, and its army leaving hundreds of thousands of its own corpses strewn across fields and ditches, has been battering against the ruins of Ukrainian villages around Donbass for a fourth year. Its culture today is Buzova and Shaman. The issue of space has been quietly closed off by the failure of all space programs and the simple inability to land a station on the surface of the moon. This was just recently. Science is now second-rate and isolated from world civilization and global science. The Black Sea Fleet is three-quarters burned and sunk. Law and justice have been replaced by distortions convenient for the regime. Torture is the norm for all security agencies. Russia is unable to provide 3,000 schools with basic civilization and is that unique place on Earth where there are nearly 40 million backyard outhouses. Everything beyond 50, and in some cases 100 kilometers from the showcase cities, is a hopeless, shameful cesspool. At present, the ruble, which you all seem to have forgotten, is not a freely convertible currency. In other words, this list of sores and signs of utter degradation could go on endlessly. Of course, one could feel sorry for Russia because it has a sad, foolish fate. It has never taken part in the development of civilization. In the 18th century, it tried to force itself into the ranks of European powers from its cave-like state, suddenly changing clothes and cleaning itself up. But nevertheless, an 800-year developmental delay ensured, as I've said 1,000 times, that its culture is secondary, crudely copied from the West. And its science, too, has sometimes become brilliant, but still remains the development of European ideas and discoveries. It's no coincidence that the free world has produced over 450 Nobel laureates, while Russia has only 13, including those who changed citizenship, emigrated, or simply had a Russian surname because they were born in Russia. Of all its greatness, Russia has only the meaningless vastness of territory that it occupied from its neighbors, taking advantage of their small numbers and weakness. And as Joseph Stalin so eloquently put it, Russia is a country that has been beaten many times and beaten cruelly by all. And 99% of its history is the fantasy of pompous liars like Nikolai Mikhailovich Karamzin, who somehow managed to paint heroism and glory over rot and disgrace. So we understand that now, right now, this international brazenness of Russia is present. But believe me, if the Kashchenko psychiatric hospital had 100 nuclear warheads, then even Kashchenko would probably be invited to the UN and warmly welcomed at the forefront. But Russia has nothing except nuclear warheads, and that's its stroke of luck, which came about thanks to the theft of the nuclear weapon recipe, something the USSR was incapable of developing on its own. Kurchatov himself admitted in 1945 that in this matter we were at absolute zero. And if it weren't for a fanatical family obsessed with communist ideas and a few other willing helpers, of course, Russia would never have had any nuclear weapons. And just remember all that wild ignorance about Russia when he suddenly declared, no one asked him, not for any reason, not even about the language, that the Russians didn't take Ukraine in 3 hours only because they went through the fields instead of on the highway, and other gems like that, such as Russia defeating Napoleon and Hitler. Well, Trump has an appalling quality of advisors on Russian affairs. Apparently, these advisors studied the Russian question through Glinka's operas and the editorials of Soviet newspapers. And Trump's ignorance on the Russian issue is simply Homeric and boundless.